now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
What's going on, RBLR Nation? You are tuning into the Rays portion of RBLR Sports. I am your host, Zach Blaine, and here with me, as always, the one and only Mr. Ben Whitelaw. How you doing, brother?
Hey, what's up, Zach? Welcome back. Right? Yeah, you were off last
yeah.
week. Yeah,
No, I was. It's been, I think it's been a couple weeks I've either missed or we've had to reschedule.
Yeah, so a little bit of stuff happened this week. Matt Quatraro became the Royals manager, so he lost out on the Marlins job, but then was hired by the Royals. The Astros, as we know, won last night in Game 6 against the Phillies to win the World Series. So good for them. Whatever. Off-season
Still
begins
cheaters.
today now.
They're still cheaters. It's interesting stuff, and kind of expected the Astros to win, but now we get into the offseason, which is where we actually get to see the Rays do some stuff again. Well, fingers crossed, do some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of have to with all the deadlines coming up. So next up is November 10th when players have to be reinstated from the 60-day IL. So we might see some movement there. Maybe some guys get cut. Maybe they get traded, all that stuff. And then the next really fun deadline is going to be November 15th when teams have to add players to the 40-man roster to protect them from the Rule 5 draft. So our next episode, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be a big one. One that I know is your strong suit in baseball talk.
I mean, all the moving parts are just really interesting to me. And if they're interesting to you, you can go ahead and like, follow, subscribe, support us at RBLR Sports on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, social media, all that good stuff. If you're already listening, that's great. Next step is to click that subscribe, follow, like button, all that stuff, and we will deliver as much good content as possible, or bad content, depending on how you look at it, to you as soon as possible. So, yeah, that's about it for that plug.
So after that plug, I mean, we talked about good and bad stuff. So what do you want to talk about today, man?
Well, I think in order to keep our promise that I messed up last week and didn't take any listener questions, I think we have some listener questions to go over right now. So we should do that first, and then we can get into the arbitration talk, because that's going to be one of the main dominoes that's going to fall over the next month or so.
Let's do it. I'm so down.
All right, so first question is from friend of the show, Jacob. So we've had him on before. He tweeted at us from his regular account at Kugel to Hall of Fame. I noticed he changed it from Mejia to Hall of Fame to Kugel. He also runs the Rays Farm Report account, so go ahead and give him a follow. But he asked, what would a Sean Murphy trade look like?
Oh, God. That's going to be one of the bigger trades that we do. If we get someone like that, I think it's going to take a bit from us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It would take a haul, because he really is probably like the best all-around catcher in baseball, not named Adley Rutschman. So I'm thinking it would take Aranda or someone like Aranda, like a mid to high tier prospect like that, plus an established big leaguer like Randy, or a very high prospect like Taj Bradley, in order to get Murphy, plus some kind of low level prospect that the Rays always kind of ask for in return in bigger trades. So it would take like someone like Aranda plus either Randy or Taj to get Murphy. So it would be a lot, like you said.
See, so I wasn't even thinking about a guy like Randy. I was thinking Bradley as kind of the centerpiece to that. But again, he's not proven. So I would agree with you on like a Bradley and Aranda duo to be the main part of that trade.
And it really would look something like that, because you have to give up good players to get good players. So this isn't a trade where they can send Brujan and Taylor Walls and Xavier Edwards over to Oakland to get Sean Murphy. It's not going to work like that.
Why not?
Yeah, or like Greg Jones and Cam Meisner. Like that's not going to happen. So you need, a really, really high end prospect like Bradley, or a really strong major leaguer like Randy, in order to get him. So I also kind of like Paul Blackburn over in Oakland. So if they could include him in a package, I think that would be nice. He would kind of fit a nice little need for a veteran arm that can eat innings.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to need it with Kluber leaving. Well, potentially leaving.
Yeah, he's probably on the way out. I don't really see them being able to afford him because he really had a really solid season.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry for saying really twice right there because that sounded kind of dumb. But anyways, we can move on to our next question. We
Let's get
got
it.
from at the price is Pat. Hold or sell on Randy Rosarena autograph cards if he is traded.
Autograph cards. I mean, I don't think it's going to make a difference if they're rookie cards, especially if you have any Bowman's first. Sell now because he's with the Rays. He's one of our best players, so his floor is really high with us. I would sell if you have him.
Yeah, I honestly don't know too much about like the card side of baseball, but I do know that if the Rays trade someone, it's for a reason, and he might have already
Exactly.
peaked. So if you're basing it on that, like maybe Randy has peaked, or maybe they hold him and he, you know, does really well again next year. So
See, so
yeah,
the thing with baseball cards is, I mean, as dumb as it is, baseball cards for some reason don't hold their value. So if you're gonna sell early, sell now. If you're gonna wait till he hopefully makes, and this is not me saying he's going to, but let's say he makes Hall of Fame or wins MVP at some point, then that's when it's going to be the highest. But the odds of that happening are, slim to none. So I would, if you have them, get out of them now.
all right, sounds good. You heard it here first. Hit that sell button. All right, next question is from, this isn't a real account. Well, it is a real account, but it's not really him. It's at Stu Sternberg. He said, what are the odds the Rays sign Masataka Yoshida? I think I'm saying that right. He's a really
Sounds good to
solid
me.
bat. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. Anyways, he's a solid bat. Doesn't really do anything else, honestly. Like his hit tool is a 70 grade out of the 20 to 80 scale, so it's really really good. It's like borderline elite. He has like slightly below average power to average power. Can't really field, doesn't really run well, but he's a lefty that can kind of flat out hit. So I don't know. What do you think about acquiring someone like that?
What was the last guy's name that we acquired like that? Was it
Yoshi
Yoshi
Sasugo.
Satsugo? Yeah, it didn't work out for us. If it's me and I'm making that decision, I'm staying away from him.
Yeah, I mean he hasn't really officially been posted yet by his league. I don't know how to say the name of the league, so I'm not even going to try to butcher it. But I don't think he's even been posted yet, so it's kind of a rumor. I don't really think the Rays need another on base, like, single, maybe a double kind of bat. I really think they're in the market for maybe a bigger power bat. So I don't think he would be a great fit, but if they could get him cheap, maybe they move on from someone like Aranda or Yandy, and then, but even then, that's a lot of moving parts. So I don't know. It just seems kind of like more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, and with him not being a great fielder, like Yandy is a solid fielder. I wouldn't move on from Yandy for someone who can just hit.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Um, but you never know. So maybe they found something they can turn him into a good fielder. But yeah, next question is from friend of the show, Darth Steven. He said, favorite place to eat at the Trop or like in concession stand, things like that.
Oh God, guys, listen, fans, don't hate on me. I've never been to a Rays game. I've never been to an MLB game in my life. I've not. So I wouldn't know what to tell you guys.
Well, on that note, so you're the okay. So we got a note from our producer there. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like ballpark food. I know they have their like their like rib sandwich thing they got out in like the center field restaurant area. It's really cool and streamlined and convenient to get the food out there. Um, they've got beer, cotton candy. They have pretty much everything you could want. Um, Not a lot of stuff that I eat out there, but before the game, there's this really cool place called Freya's Diner. They got some really good food kind of near the Trop. It's like downtown St. Pete area. A lot of really great places around the Trop with like a variety of food. But in terms of like stuff at the Trop, um, it's all kind of like the same to me. I don't really see anything exciting, but I do miss the days when you could bring like a pub sub into the Trop, like you could bring outside food in, and
Oh
you could
no.
just sit out there with your
Oh.
like
Mm.
$15 ticket, eat a pub sub, enjoy the game. It was nice.
So we're getting word from our producer, the short rib grilled cheese or a Cuban for sure is the best food there. Like I said, I haven't been there. You guys got to remember, I lived in Orlando, in that area. That was a 3-hour drive for me to get to a game. So never really got the chance to go, but I would love to, and one day I will, and I will come back and answer that question for you.
Oh, so they got a taco bus at the Trop? I never noticed that. That's good to know because that's actually like that's pretty solid food. Um, the original taco bus is really good too if you ever go out to that location. Shock Top is always pretty good at the Trop. That's like my go-to. It's like citrusy, so I feel like you're at the Trop. You got to have a Shock Top probably.
But
So
you
that
have
makes
to.
sense.
You have to.
Next, well, this isn't really a question. It's just kind of a statement from at cake_GBF. He said, "God of baseball, Christian Bethencourt." Um, Thoughts on that?
Uh, we're just calling anyone gods now? Is that what we're doing? I love Bethencourt. I think I disagree with his take, though. I don't know that I'd say God.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even really know if he's going to be on the roster next season, but that's cool. I can get behind that for like a couple minutes and then move on. So yeah, cool, good statement there, Cake. Thank you for that.
Great question, Jake.
All right, final question here is from at Bent Connor. He's sent in a couple questions before. What would a Seth Brown trade look like? Seth Brown is someone I've kind of been high on. He's a nice lefty power bat. He can handle first base. Not too great in the corner outfield spot, but okay enough to play there occasionally. But he would be mainly a first baseman. So I don't know. What do you think of him? He's also a Ray killer too. Like he always plays well against the Rays.
I mean, he's not someone that I have very much intel on, aside from, like you said, every time he plays the Rays, it seems to be very solid. So I wouldn't be able to give you like an actual trade idea, but I would imagine if it's someone that we're looking into, and I know that you've been high on them, it would probably be a little bit pricey.
Yeah, I mean, it would be someone kind of like a Vidal Brujan, Xavier Edwards, Taylor Walls, plus maybe somebody like Harold. Like you're gonna have to kind of give up a little bit more. You might have to
Yeah.
overpay just a bit. But Brujan and Harold Ramirez, I think that would get the deal done for Seth Brown. So maybe throw in a prospect and get Paul Blackburn because, like I said, I really like him and he would fill a need too. So I think the Oakland Athletics are going to be a pretty popular trade partner, at least in rumors this offseason.
Yeah, I was going to say, they seem to be one of those teams that it seems like every year there's 2 or 3 people on that team that can and will get traded. So I want to say that Tampa's got a chance to, why don't we do a Murphy, Blackburn, and Brown trade? Like, let's just get it all done in one. But realistically, like, if we can get Murphy or Brown, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I think I just want somebody from Oakland. So if Neander could make that happen, that would be great. But yeah, that's all for our questions here. Anything else you wanted to talk about before we move on to our topic?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you had to pick one between, Murphy and Brown, and let's say we get Murphy. I guess this is 2 questions in one. If you had to pick Murphy or Brown, which one would you rather have? And then if we were to trade for Murphy, do we get rid of Zunino at that point?
Yeah, I think if we get Murphy, Zanino's out. I mean, he's a free agent now, so he's kind of like on the outside looking in. I'd prefer Brown just because Murphy's going to be like a massive overpay, and like everybody, whoever gets him has to overpay. But I mean, if they could do Taj plus like, I don't know, like Harold for Murphy, I would do that, but I don't think the Athletics would take that. But if they could, I would do that. So I think Brown is more realistic, so I kind of am leaning towards him. But
okay.
Yeah, what about you?
I've had my ups and downs with Zunino, so I'm leaning more towards Murphy. I think that Brown is more realistic, but I'm leaning more towards Murphy because I feel like he kind of fits that everyday starter at catcher for us. And he might not put up the home run numbers that Zunino has the ability to do, but I think that he's better all around.
Yeah, he definitely is. And I think the catcher spot is going to be a position that the Rays look to solidify early on because you don't want to bring a new catcher into the mix like in spring training. They kind of did what they
Exactly.
had to do with Bethencourt, like acquiring him midseason last year. But now that you have time on your side, I think we're going to see the catcher position, whether it's Zunino is like, brought back on a 1 or 2 year deal or they trade for someone. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
All right, so that just about covers it. You definitely have to throw. Okay, yeah. I mean, we could throw in like an RBLR Rays shirt to kind of get Murphy over here. I think the Athletics might like that. If we do it in Rowdy's colors, they would take it, right?
I
Wouldn't
mean,
that make sense?
they would have to. Yeah, they would have to.
Yeah. So, I mean, if anybody else wants that shirt, though, you can head over to shop.rblrsports.com. Use promo code FLAPPY, FLAPPY. You get 10% off your order for any of our team inspired shirts, not officially licensed. But you don't need to know that. Whoever you're
Not
giving
yet.
the shirt to, they don't need to know that. So yeah, we've got the Bucks, Rays, Lightning, Rowdies, probably some leftover Bandit stuff. I'm sure sitting in a warehouse somewhere. Who knows? I don't know
It's
if they
not
print on
leftover.
on
They're
order.
still important.
Um, okay, yeah. So buy a shirt, do all that stuff. Just send us some kind of money.
I like that. We don't care what you do. Just send us some money. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, so now into the a little bit less funny, more complicated topic of arbitration. So when teams go into arbitration or players go into arbitration, their teams have to decide, do we want to keep them or move on? They are, if you have 3 years of service time or more, and you're not on like a veteran like extension or a deal, you go to arbitration and you try to get like a yearly raise that way. If you have less than 3 years, then you are subject to being paid the league minimum unless you qualify for Super 2 status, which is a little complicated, but basically like if you meet a specific service time threshold that changes every year, you're eligible to go into arbitration 1 year early, which is typically like really beneficial for players so they can get a raise sooner. A couple Super 2 guys for the Rays this year are Randy Arozarena and Jason Adams. So instead of being on the league minimum like rookie salary this year, they're going to get a pretty nice raise. So because they
and
met the service time requirement.
and they only met that service time requirement. I think Arozarena was by like 3 days, and Adams was by like 8 days.
Yep. So I mean, they yeah, they did it. So now they're going to get paid, which is good for them. But now it makes the Rays decisions a little bit more complex and tricky. So when they're going into arbitration, teams can either tender or non-tender their players. So if they tender them, they agree to negotiate to, an arbitration number at some point in the future. I think the date is somewhere in January, so it's pretty far ahead. So they don't have to negotiate right now. They just have to either say, yes, we're going to negotiate later, or if they non-tender the players, then they get immediately sent to free agency and they become a free agent pretty much right away. So the deadline to either tender or non-tender players is November 18th. So that's going to come up in just a couple weeks. But like we said before, kind of at the top of the show, the November 10th deadline to reinstate players from the 60-day IL is coming up. The November 15th deadline to add guys to the 40-man to protect them from the Rule 5 draft is also coming up really soon. So these dates kind of all run together, and that's going to create a whirlwind of moves and hopefully some interesting acquisitions for the Rays over the next like really week and a half. So basically, that was a mouthful to say we're going to talk about the arbitration eligible guys and whether we would like to tender them, so agree to negotiate at some point later, or non-tender them, immediately send them to free agency.
Okay, I like that. Now these guys, they have the ability to be traded, correct?
Yes, so right now they're still, technically under team control and they are until they are officially non-tendered. So, if they get traded before that November 18th deadline, their new team would just have to either, tender or non-tender them,
Okay.
at their new organization.
All right, I just wanted to clarify. I wanted
No,
to, I
that's a
mean,
good question.
because I know that some of these guys, like I wouldn't necessarily send right to free agency. I would maybe try and work out a trade.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what teams are going to try to do. But then on the other side of that, if a team knows that you're going to send a guy into free agency because you're going to non-tender him, his trade value is going to plummet. So like
Yeah.
the first guy I have on here, let's just say Jimon Choi, he's arbitration eligible, which he is. If the Rays make it kind of obvious that they're going to non-tender him, then his trade value is going to be in the toilet. So they at least have to either tender him early or pretend like they're going to if they want to get
Yeah,
a trade, and get some reasonable value for him.
exactly. All right, so that's all. I just wanted to clarify that.
No, that was great. Yeah, I think that just about covers everything. But if we missed anything or you have any questions, Eureka, feel free to drop those for us. But I think we got it. So yeah, first guy up, Jimon Choi. What are you thinking about him?
This is probably, in my opinion, the hardest one on here because, like, I love G-Man Choi, but if it were me, I'm either non-tendering him or I'm trading him.
Right, and I also forgot to mention he's projected to get $4.5 million in arbitration, and I think he made around 3 million this year, I believe. So pretty nice raise for him. And typically the Rays don't pay that much for a guy that is a platoon player. Like that's pretty expensive. So yeah, I'm thinking they might non-tender him. They might move on. I'd like him to stay because I really believe in his bounce back year in 2023, and not having the shift is going to be huge for him because he was the most like hurt player because of the shift on the entire team by quite a lot. So I believe in him bouncing back, but I don't know if he's going to bounce back enough for $4.5 million.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The second half of his season, from what we saw, it wasn't as good as what we were expecting. So I
Right.
think that 4 million, 4.5 million is quite a bit to pay someone who, like you mentioned too, is a platoon guy. He's not even an everyday starter.
Right. And I mean, being left-handed, like he's going to play most days because right-handed pitching is, more abundant in the league. But if you
Yeah,
can go out and get like Seth Brown, Brandon Belt, just a guaranteed upgrade, I think Troy would probably be on his way out. So if they can't get one of those higher end names or like some kind of guaranteed upgrade, I think Troy is probably going to stay. But it looks like they're going to try to add some kind of left-handed power bat, and typically that's like a first base or DH profile. So maybe not Troy. I'd like to keep him, but I agree. I think he's probably out.
yeah, we're on the same page. I wouldn't mind to keep him, but agreed with you. Gone.
Right. So next up, this is an order of service time, by the way, which is kind of interesting. But Choi had like the most service time out of all these players. The next up is Yanni Chirinos, which doesn't really seem like it, but he's been around for quite a bit. I know he's been on the shelf, but he's back. So he is projected to make 1.6 million in arbitration next year. So would you like to tender or non-tender Yanni Chirinos?
Yeah, this one we've been doing fine without him, but for you said 1.69,
1.6 million, yes.
1.6 million. Why not keep him? That's the way that I look at it. Like, he's not very expensive, and I think that he could fill in that veteran arm. I know that he's been around for a little while, and he's taking a little bit of time off due to injury. But realistically, he could be that veteran arm that takes Kluber's spot.
Right, exactly. I think he could fill that kind of role. I don't know if he could hit like the same innings pitch threshold that Kluber did, but he's definitely like a quality innings eater, maybe like even a number 4 start, maybe a 3-4 starter on most teams, fully healthy. So yeah, I like Yanni. I like his stuff, and I like to see them keep him, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they decided to like trade him for a low level prospect or non-tender him.
Now, that was going to be my next statement. Is he's up there for me in the top probably 3 to 5 arbitration eligible guys that we have, like probably with the most trade value.
Yeah, I think like it wouldn't make much sense to non-tender him because like he's still pretty affordable, but
Exactly.
he could get like a low level like non-rule 5 eligible prospect and help trim down the 40 man. So I think that might be a realistic move for Yanni.
Yep, I agree with that.
All right, next up is Yandy Diaz, projected to make $5.4 million in arbitration this year. Coming off pretty much the best season of his entire life at any level, he really carried the offense for most of the season, which isn't saying a lot because the offense was down this year, but he was still like the most consistent and probably their best offensive player this year.
Yeah, I agree. And when I read his name, first thing that popped into my mind was pay this man. I think he gets more than arbitration, and I think we extend him 2 or 3 years.
I mean, if they do extend him, that kind of would make Isak Paredes, Taylor Walls, Xavier Edwards, even kind of Curtis Mead. That would kind of be like a question mark for those guys because they're all kind of like that corner of the infield glove and bat combo. So I think they'll probably agree to the 5.4 million or somewhere around that for Yandy, but I think he'll be on more of like a trade watch this season. I think he's
Okay.
probably if the Rays are going to sell high like they typically like to do, I think they'll agree to tender him, but I think he could get traded maybe soon after at some point this season.
Dang, so you would not be surprised to see Yandy Diaz gone this season.
Yeah, I think they have, with Brandon Lau coming back, Wander most likely, actually, I'm very confident he's going to take a step forward. Isak Paredes established himself last year. Yandy is almost expendable, so if they could guarantee an upgrade at some other position, whether they go out and get like a solid DH or first baseman or right fielder type with the power bat, I think it helps make Yandy a little bit more expendable.
So I know that it's technically not an arbitration guy, but a guy like Brandon Lau, do you think that we could get more to help this team to trade him and still have a guy like Paredes who can play second?
Yeah, definitely. I just don't think the Rays. I think Brandon Lau has probably the highest trade value on the team behind like Wander
And
and then
Shane,
McClanahan,
yeah.
and then Brandon Lau. Because he's on such a team friendly deal. I think he makes like $5 to $7 million a season, but he's producing like 25 to $30 million worth of value each season. So I don't know how many teams could actually afford Brandon Lau, like realistically, without destroying their farm system or part of their team this season. So I
Yeah.
think Brandon Lau's pretty safe just because he's going to be really expensive. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different ways to move players around, and I think Yandy's arbitration decision is going to be that they tender him, but I think his future with the team kind of depends on what they do in free agency or in the trade market.
I can see that. I see where you're coming from.
All right, next one, a guy that I really like and I'm super high on, so I hope the Rays decide to keep him. Sean Armstrong, he is expected to make $1.3 million this season. I think he's still developing. He had a career high in pitch velocity this season at 98. He was phenomenal. Both stints with the Rays, he's like really grown a lot and improved. And I think there's a lot of untapped potential still. And I'm excited about him in 2023. So I'm already going to say it. I want them to tender him. Absolutely. I don't think he's worthy of an extension because he's kind of just like a relief pitcher / bulk arm, but he's going to be a pretty important piece, I think, in 2023.
Yeah, I can't lie. When you started naming that off, I thought you were going Ryan Yarbrough first. But no, I agree. Armstrong is the guy who I think stays around. He gets tendered if it were up to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I did accidentally skip over Ryan Yarbrough there, but we'll go back to him. I just saw Sean Armstrong's name, and I'm like, he's awesome. He's basically like an underdeveloped Andrew Kittredge at this point with his
Yeah,
pitch mix
yeah.
and how he attacks hitters. So I really like him, and I think he's going to be pretty solid going forward. But yeah, we can go back to Yarbs. He's projected to make 4.2 million in arbitration. And to be honest with you, that's a pretty expensive fifth starter / bulk option. So depending on where his stuff is at and what his health looks like, I really wouldn't be surprised if they non-tendered him.
Okay, see, so that's why I kind of assumed Ryan Yarbrough when you said a guy that I really like because we all know that you've been super high on Yarbs. I would be shocked if we tender him, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah, that's a lot of money for someone that's been optioned this season.
I was going to say he was sent up and down at least twice this season. I think it was 3 times, but he was optioned at least twice this season, so I don't see him being tendered for $4 million.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them like non-tendering him and then maybe trying to sign him to a smaller deal, but you don't need to pay 4.2 million for that. Like he's not worth 4.2 million dollars when you're the Rays who are operating on a pretty small payroll. So a relatively small payroll.
Yeah,
So yeah, I just
exactly.
I just don't think he's worth that much money. I think he's still really cool and really interesting and his stuff is really cool, but not for over $4 million.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay, cool. So next we can move on then to Jalen Beeks, projected to make 1.2 million. What do you think about Jalen Beeks?
I love Jalen Beeks, and I think if it were up to me, we tender him. I do think that our pitching depth is like our arbitration eligible pitchers are where we have kind of a logjam. So I think that that's going to be some names that we see who could potentially not be here next year or not get tendered. But Jalen Beeks is one of my favorite guys in our bullpen, and I think that we should tender him.
Yeah, I think they will, but I think a trade for him could happen like soon after. Um, Acquiring Garrett Cleavenger last year, he is easily the best lefty in the bullpen now, unless they decide to stretch him out into a starter, which that's a topic for another day, I guess. But yeah, I think Beeks he might even be behind Poche in terms of like your best lefty out of the bullpen because Poche really turned it on like the last 2 months of the year. Beeks is still great, and I'd like to keep him, but I could definitely see him getting tendered and then traded maybe soon after.
Yeah, I don't want it to happen, but I can see it.
Right. And it also kind of depends on like where some of the other like minor league left-handed options are, like how they're progressing. So
Yeah.
we really won't know until the front office explicitly says or does something because they've got like Jose Lopez. He's a guy who reached AAA last year. He's a lefty that throws pretty hard, pretty similar to Beeks, honestly. Just a better slider, and then Beeks has a good changeup. So yeah, I don't know. The Rays have options, so it's not a bad thing, but I do hope they find a way to keep Beeks.
Yeah, he's like I said, just everything about him is the way his delivery, everything is just phenomenal.
All right. So next up is Andrew Kittredge. He is expected to make $2 million in arbitration. He went down with Tommy John surgery last year, like early on. So he's probably not even going to pitch until like after the All Star break, I want to say.
Yeah, I think that around mid-season is when we'll see him next season, and I love Kittredge. I think that he's one of the best, definitely our best closer, and I think possibly one of the best in the MLB. But we don't know what he's going to look like coming off of Tommy John surgery, so I'm at a loss on this one.
Yeah, me too. I'm pretty sure they'll tender him, but if they don't, like it's fine because like you said, we don't really know what he's going to look like coming off the injury. He might like never be the same again. Because I know that he did have another like UCL tear like previously in his career, so this is, kind of interesting. And also making $2 million pitching in like half a season, that's
It's a
maybe half a
lot.
season, like if everything goes well. Like so let's just assume he wasn't injured, that number would be like I mean, not that it would be higher if he wasn't injured, but you're essentially paying like double that if he's pitching half a season. I don't know. Fractions are confusing, but basically, I don't think. I mean, I would tender him, but if they don't, I'm not going to be upset about it. I totally understand.
Yeah, it's one of those things where my personal opinion is tender him and see if he comes back. But as like running a team, I could see where they would say, no, we don't want to tender him for $2 million a year for half a season.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
wouldn't be mad.
Another guy who I wouldn't be mad if they decided to move on from is next up on our list, Francisco Mejia. He is projected to make 2.2 million. I really like what he is doing with the bat lately. I think And he also got LASIK this offseason, which
I was just
seems
gonna
like
say,
that was probably needed a lot. But I think they're turning him into like a really cool high BABIP bat at the catcher spot. He's got a great arm. Framing is subpar, but with robo-umps coming up soon, it doesn't matter too much. I just really like the arm a lot and what he's starting to do with the bat. So it kind of depends what they decide to do with Zunino and on the trade market and stuff. But I think Mejia is probably going to get tendered and he'll probably stick around, I think.
yeah, I don't want him around if I'm being completely honest with you. His framing is so bad, but it really does all rely on Zunino. If Zunino comes back, then I don't think Francisco stays because later on in the list, there's a guy down here who I think we're keeping, and I'd rather have him and Zunino than Mejia and Zunino.
Yeah, me too. But I think he's going to get tendered either way, just because we don't really know what the trade market could look like right away. So
yeah, that's fair.
I think they decide to we're gonna possibly pay you $2.2 million in January, but between now and January 15th or whatever, you could get traded because there are potential upgrades available that the Rays can afford. So yeah, I think they tender him, but he probably gets chopped off or not chopped off, but traded, chopped off, whatever.
Shipped out.
Shipped out. That's even better. Before the start of the next season.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page with that one as well. This is going way smoother than I thought it would.
I mean, maybe the LASIK really changes his life, and he's so good now, and they're like, yeah, 2.2 is a steal, but yeah, I don't know. It seems like LASIK plus some kind of decision making skill surgery might be needed for Mejia with some of those swings he had last year. I don't think it was all in his eyes. I think there was a little bit more to it.
I second that.
But it's also really cool. So it's I don't know, looking into his launch angles and stuff like that, it's there's something going on that's intentional, but I just don't know if it's worth it. But anyways, Jeffrey Springs is up next, $3 million. What do you think about Springs?
I mean, he was a workhorse for us last year. I feel like you have to tender him.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, he's probably the closest thing there is to a lock on this entire list as there possibly could be. He's worth so much more than $3 million. So I think they tender him, keep him as long as possible.
Is he a guy that you would give an extension to?
No. Okay. I don't really like extending pitchers that much. I know he doesn't really have the Tommy John risk that Rasmussen and McClanahan have, and now Shane Baz. But yeah, I mean, he was great. I just don't know how long he'll be able to be great, and he's still under team control until I think 2026 or 2027. So
yeah, so he's got
they still have him for 5 or 6 more years. I think this is his first year of arbitration, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I think he sticks around, but I don't see an extension happening.
That's fair. I didn't realize that he had that much team control left, or at that point I wouldn't give him an extension yet either.
I mean, his value is gonna shoot up after this season. He's gonna make maybe $6 million in arbitration the following year, assuming he's everything goes okay and he stays healthy. So maybe then might be the time to trade him. But right now he's that's a steal at $3 million. You're getting 120, 130 innings with a sub 3.5 FIP. That's awesome for $3 million.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's my second lock on this. The first lock we have so far out of a total of 3 locks, in my opinion.
I've got some locks down near the bottom of the list too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Looking forward to those. Next two, I think we can kind of knock out back to back here. Roman Quinn is expected to make $900,000. Nick Anderson $845,000. I think the Rays cut their losses on both of them. I don't really see either of them coming back.
Agreed. I think they're both gone, which I know I've talked about it before. I loved Anderson when we got him in the trade from Miami, but he's too injury prone. I think they're both gone.
Yeah, Anderson's stuff is basically cooked at this point. So unless he gets back to himself, in some kind of side throwing season prep sessions like in November, December here, I don't really think he's going to stick around. Like they sent him home early at the end of last season just because he just couldn't get it back up to where it used to be. So not really a good sign, but unless something crazy happens and we get some nice footage of him hitting like 95, 96 again, I think he's getting sent out.
Yeah, they're just like, have an extended break. We don't need you anymore, but it's okay.
Yeah.
That was his ticket out. He knew it.
Yeah. All right, but next up here is Harold Ramirez, expected to make 1.2 million. What do you think about Harold?
I think he is the perfect trade chip. I think that we tender him, and I would almost put money on it that he's traded before the season starts.
Yeah, he seems like the perfect like sell high candidate. I mean, there are a couple of guys the Rays could do that with, but Harold isn't like super important to the offense. Like he had a great year, but an unsustainably great year. So I think they tender him, sell high, get like a nice like mid tier non-Rule 5 eligible prospect, or package him with someone else to get like a bigger name. But I think they tender him and then probably get rid of him before the start of the season.
Yep, I agree 100%. And that's not any hate on Harold Ramirez. I love him as a Ray. I think he's a good player, but I think that we just have a lot of good players.
Yeah, he was fun and useful, but he's kind of going to get pushed out with Kyle Manzardo, Curtis Mead, basically prospects that are coming up, and then his inevitable decline after a career year. So, yep, tender him, sell high. Next up is Colin Poche, expected to make 1.7 million. What do you think about Poche?
He's one of those guys. Again, he's in my opinion up there with Jalen Beeks, where one of them or a few of these guys probably won't be on the roster next year, and so I'm saying we're gonna tender him, especially for how cheap he is. Like he's a very good pitcher, and I would not mind having him on the team, but I do think that with him on the team, Beeks might not be.
Yeah, I don't think they need both of Poche and Beeks. I mean, if they keep both, that's fine. But yeah, I think he's probably going to get tendered unless they decide to trade him or something. I don't know, but I think he gets tendered. He was statistically, like based on his FIP and ERA and stuff, he was either the second or third best pitcher, kind of like it's a toss up between second and third. He was the second and third best relief pitcher since he changed his curveball shape. So we had like Pete Fairbanks was easily number one. Jason Adam was number two, pretty easily. And then it was like Garrett Cleavenger and Colin Poche were really, really good as the next. Like, so maybe Poche was like maybe the fourth best bullpen arm. So I think a team can afford to lose their fourth best bullpen arm and still be good next year, but 1.7 million is fine, I think.
Yeah, it's not too much money for him. I think that if they can agree to that price, then I say we keep him.
Yeah. All right. Next one is Shaggy. So JT Chagua, he is expected to make $1 million. Cool, nice round number for him. Would you keep him or would you tender or non-tender?
I would tender him.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts to tender him. I know he's out of options, so that's it makes it a little bit more tricky, but he made some really good progress and he continued to make progress even when he got back to the major league level. So injuries were a little annoying, but I think there's still some value in him, and his strike throwing ability really improved this year.
Yeah, and I think that it just has the potential to go up. Like his what he's putting out has the potential to go up. So I don't see why we don't tender him for $1 million.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's worth it. But at the same time, they could go out and sign somebody for like $800,000, and he would probably do the same, if not better.
Yeah.
So it just depends on where their other pitching depth is at. So yeah, I think he gets tendered though. I don't see why not.
And also, we got to remember these are projected numbers, so there's a chance they could agree to less than $1 million.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he would take too much less than that. I think he would definitely take that to the arbitrator, and the judge would decide like what he gets. But yeah, he's worth it for that amount of money.
I second that. I second that.
Next up, I don't really have much to say about this guy. Pete Fairbanks, 1.5 million. He's a lock for me. I don't see him
Yeah,
going anywhere.
yeah, he is my number one lock on here.
Yeah, him and Springs are like they are. Yeah, you can't get rid of them.
No, they're both very important to this team, both now and in the future. So I think that if they don't tender him, I'll eat my shoe. Like I would be shocked.
All right, we gotta set up a video episode if that happens. But yeah, I think Fairbanks is easily a lock. Best bullpen arm on the team, maybe even in baseball. Great stuff.
I would say in baseball, I would go that far.
All right, next up, Christian Bethancourt, 1.6 million. He is allegedly a god. He seems pretty safe, unless Mike Zunino is brought back and then they go out and try to get like some other catcher. But I think he's safe for non-tendering purposes. I mean, for tendering purposes, like 1.6 million for his production. I don't really see him going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm saying tender him, tender him, tender him. He needs to be here next year. I think that even with Zanino, he's a great backup catcher.
Yeah, he's pretty solid against right-handers, which is interesting because he's got that like reverse split thing going on. So yeah, I mean Zanino would get the bulk of the playing time and pretty much every day against lefties, assuming he's brought back, and then Bethancourt would get the righties. So I like that pairing. He probably sticks around, but like I said, catcher is somewhere the Rays could decide to upgrade. So if they don't, I mean, I think they tender him, but maybe they move him if something else that's better comes along.
Yeah, if a Murphy trade works out, like I could see him not being here.
Yeah. All right, next, we're almost done here, so don't worry if you're getting bored. Ryan Thompson, 1.1 million. He is he got injured and was out for the rest of the season after I think it was like an elbow thing, or no, it was probably his shoulder. He always gets hurt with his shoulder. So yeah, what do you think about Ryan Thompson?
You just said it there. He always gets hurt with his shoulder. I'm non-tendering him if I'm the Rays.
Yeah, it really depends where his health is at, but I agree. Maybe they try to bring him back on like some kind of minor league deal or some kind of cheaper deal after non-tendering him. But he's one of the toughest matchups for right-handed batters. It's just the health, and he's like not great against lefties. So
Yeah,
he doesn't have a whole lot of value, but I do like the arm angle he provides, and when he's healthy, he's a really tough matchup for right-handed batters because that ball comes in from like behind you. Like he starts so far off to the right, and you have to swing at it when it's like coming at you. So it's a really, really tough matchup.
yeah, and I think that the only problem with him to me, aside from like the last few times that we've seen him injured, it has been for a prolonged amount of time. I think that he's just a situational pitcher, which I know the Rays are good at, but it's like I feel like there's more that we could be spending that on. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. All right. A couple more guys here. Jason Adam. He's, I think, pretty close to a lock. 1.9 million for being like the number two behind Fairbanks. He was one of the better relief pitchers all season. Should have been an all-star. Yeah, he did fall off a little bit at the end of the season, but like it wasn't anything that couldn't be attributed to like random variance. So his stuff still looked great. His command was solid. Yeah, I think he would look really good after one more season in the Rays pitching lab.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that when you have a guy with two first names, if you don't tender him, you're crazy. I think that he deserves to be here, and I think that I know I said there's 3 locks. I lied. I have 4. This is my 3rd lock.
Yeah, he seems pretty safe. It's pretty rare when a relief pitcher has like 3++ pitches. Like his fastball is really good, slider is really good, his changeup is elite. Like his command is the only thing that could hold him back, but he's been totally fine since joining the Rays. So he also hit a career high in pitch velocity last year, around the same time as Sean Armstrong. So and that was like I think September or August they did it. So like pretty interesting that late in the season he was able to get that out. So I think there's definitely some more development left for Jason Adam, kind of like Sean Armstrong.
Yeah, I agree. He's another guy that I'd be surprised if he's not back.
All right, last player here. He's at the bottom of the list because he has the fewest or like the lowest amount of service time on the entire roster, and that is Randy Arozarena. He is projected to get $4 million in arbitration.
Pay him. I know you're not a fan of extensions. This is a man I would give an extension to.
Yeah,
I mean, he might be at the bottom of this list, but he's the top of my heart. All right.
Let's get that in like the tagline for the episode or the teaser. I don't know. That was a great quote. But yeah, I think Randy does get tendered. He definitely, I mean, he's allegedly a trade candidate, according to Mark Topkin. I don't know how much I believe that because like $4 million for his production's fine. He's likely going to be better next year too with like the new rule changes and all that stuff, especially with like the base running things because he struggled a little bit there. But anyways, yeah, I think he's worth $4 million. I think he could get traded, but I don't think this is the year for it. He's still under team control till like 2026, maybe, I think. So if he does get traded, I don't think it's happening now. Maybe it's like a mid-season thing if the Rays like poop the bed. So I think he's safe right now, and he's definitely getting tendered.
He's getting tendered. Mark Topkin's a liar. You heard it here first. That's all I can say. He's getting tendered. He's going to be here. He's our guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the extension stuff, but yeah, I think he's safe for now. So, yeah, that's the whole list of arbitration eligible players. So if you stuck around for all those guys, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. We appreciate it, and I know we touched on it in the beginning of the episode, but if you guys could just, wherever you're listening to this at, give us a follow, give us a like, and then on all your major social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we are at RBLR Sports. If you could just give us a follow on there, that's where we get all of our listener questions, and that's where we go over to answer all those. So if you guys could go give us a follow, let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. We'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, like Zach said, thank you all for listening. Two quick things before we wrap up. The Rays had 5 players named to the Arizona Fall League All-Star team, which is the most out of any organization. So the Rays are the best yet again in some other weird category. The Australian Baseball League kicks off soon with Junior Caminero and Willie Vasquez playing with the Perth Heat starting on November 11th. So I'm excited to look at those box scores when I wake up because I think they play at like 3 a.m. Eastern time. So it's like, I'm not going to be following the game as it happens, but
why not?
We're going to get to see Caminero continue his development. So,
yeah, I think he's a stud. That's the best way I could put it. He's going to be so good.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, that's about it. Thank you everybody for listening. Make sure you do all that stuff that Zach said earlier, and go Rays.
Go Rays.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.